The Arm of the Starfish by Madeleine L'Engle, Chapter 21. Collie leaned toward the driver obediently, and the cab headed back into the city. Adam, straining to look out the window, tried to keep landmarks, street names in his mind, but the problem of Callie kept whirling about, driving away all other thoughts. He could not abandon her either to the Tagus or to the web of steel threads being woven so mercilessly by her father, but he had to go back to Sao John Chrysostom Monastery, and he had to go there alone. Why? If he believed that Kali was telling him the truth, why wasn't he taking her with him to Canon Talus, the best possible thing to do? He believed her, and yet he was not quite sure. A week ago, the confiding way she was holding on to his arm would have undone him entirely. Now all he felt was cold inside and out. Why are we going to Eiffel's Tower? To give me time to think. But you're going to keep me with you. I'm going to try to. You're going to take care of me, yes? The tower loomed up grotesquely in the street. The observation platform balanced precariously on top of the spindly elevator shaft. It was built, it seemed, out of a small boy's erector set. Adam had never seen the Eiffel Tower in Paris, but he had seen pictures of it, and both were obviously the result of the same rackety imagination. The Lisbon Tower, however, also served a purely practical purpose. Lisbon, like Rome, was a city of steep hills, and the foot of the tower was on one street level, the observation platform on another, and riding the elevator was for many people simply a useful shortcut. At any other time, Adam would have been immensely pleased with it. Now, he gave the wild construction the scantest attention. As they waited for the elevator to take them to the upper level, he said, "Okay, I think I've got things straight. Tell me, if you'll do the shopping for Mrs. O'Keefe, it's just socks and underthings for the kids, and I have all the sizes and everything written down, then I can do one other errand at the same time, and then we can meet for dinner." "What's your errand?" "Something for Dr. O'Keefe." Callie frowned, as though this was something she needed to ponder about. Finally she said, "I'm sorry, Adam, but how will I know you'll ever come back to me? You could send me shopping and just disappear. I give you my word. People's words don't mean much to me anymore. I need something more tangible than that." "I don't have anything more tangible. I'll do my errand, and then I promise you I'll meet you wherever you say." Callie thought again. "Have you got your passport with you?" "Of course. Give it to me as a hostage. Then I'll know you can't go off and leave me." "I thought you trusted me." "I do, more than anybody else I know. But you see, the people I know have been Daddy and his people, and I always trusted Daddy, so how can I trust anybody? Please, Adam, if you are coming back to me, there isn't any reason not to give me your passport." Slowly, Adam took the passport out of his breast pocket. Still holding it, he asked, "Where will we meet?" "At the Folklore. As soon after 6 as possible. The food's good, and you ought to hear some fado and see some of the folk dancing." She held out her hand. Adam put the passport in it. She began leafing through it. "Oh, Adam, what an awful picture. I'd never recognize you." Between the next 2 pages was a slip of paper with Joshua's phone number. "What's this?" "Just some phone numbers. Give it to me." Callie shut the passport. "Oh, no. I'm going to keep the whole thing." To make an issue over the numbers would be to give them importance in Callie's mind. Adam swallowed. His hands felt colder and colder. His feet, too, seemed to be lumps of ice. He was doing what he had promised not to do. He said, "The numbers are just for the errands for Dr. O'Keefe. I'd appreciate it if you let me have them." "Look them up in the phone book." Callie put the passport into her bag. "You don't trust me, Adam. I can't bear it." Adam felt physically sick. His stomach clenched with fury at his ineptness, with frustration at his inability to do anything right. He did not dare press the issue of the phone numbers further. If he could convince Callie that they were unimportant, and if he could get back to the San Juan Chrysostom in time to deliver the tennis papers to Canon Talus, then he could meet Callie for dinner, get the passport and Joshua's numbers back, and no real harm would be done. Mr. Eiffel's elevator creaked down and groaned to a stop, disgorging a chattering group of Lisbonese on their way home, and tourists gawking at and commenting on the tower in all languages. "Come on," Callie said, pushing through the crowd into the elevator, pulling Adam after her. People continued to jam in long after Adam felt capacity had been reached. He could not see the usual comforting sign to tell how many the elevator could safely hold. The air was thick with sweat, smoke, perfume. With each passing second, he felt more of a sense of pressure, and more as though he were going to be sick. He pressed close against Kali, and she managed to slide one arm confidently around his waist. He was glad she had not taken the clammy hand that would have given away his intense nervousness that was bordering on fear. They were standing near the elevator operator, and Callie spoke to him in Portuguese, explaining in Adam's ear, "He's an old friend. One of Daddy's men?" "Really, Adam," Callie said as the door clanged shut. "I thought I'd made myself clear." Her voice choked up, and Adam was afraid his stupidity was going to make her burst into tears. There in the crowded elevator. "I'm sorry." His voice was gruff. He clenched his fists. He must keep control of himself in the situation while he carried the tennis papers, and while Callie had the passport with Joshua's phone numbers. The elevator started to creak upward. People going home from work continued their conversations or stood in stolid fatigue. The tourists exclaimed in excitement, one fat woman giving small shrieks of nervousness at the reluctant jerking of the elevator. Just as they neared the observation platform, there was a groan, a shudder, and they stopped. The operator fiddled with the controls. He said something in Portuguese, then loudly in English. "Stuck!" There was a burst of excited, multilingual talk. Callie said in a clear voice as the fat woman's shrieks grew louder, "It's all right. Don't worry. This happens all the time. He'll get it going in a moment. It's perfectly all right. Don't get panicky." The operator broke through her words to call up through the roof. From both the upper and lower levels came shouts of excitement and evidently directions, because the operator began jerking at the controls. The elevator dropped a foot and stopped. The fat woman let out a piercing scream. Adam could feel, particularly among the tourists, a sense of terror compounded by his own. Callie, strangely, seemed less nervous than she had all day. She said something in a very low voice to the operator, but a Frenchman, standing close to them, had evidently heard, because he said, "What was that?" "I beg your pardon?" Callie asked icily in French. The Frenchman accused, "You told him to stop the elevator." "Why under the sun would I do that? I'm in just as much of a rust as you are." "I heard you say pata. That means stop." Callie burst into shrill laughter. "Ha ha ha ha! Your Portuguese isn't very good, isn't it? Para means order to. I told him to call someone in order to get us out." The Frenchman looked sourly at Callie. "I don't believe you. I think we are being forcibly detained," he shouted above the babble. "Start this car at once!" The operator shrugged. "Stuck!" The fat woman cried shrilly. "Somebody do something! Help!" Madam, the operator said, "I have already pressed the alarm button." From the streets above and below, the shouts were louder, as though larger groups were gathering. Adam felt suffocated. Seconds were passing, and the tennis papers still on him. He had to get to Canon Talus. Above him, he could see the floor of the observation platform. If the doors of the elevator were opened, he would be able to climb up and out onto the platform. But when he suggested this to Callie, she spoke again. In her fluent, rapid Portuguese, the operator shook his head. "Not safe." Callie's arm tightened around Adam's waist. "Are you in that much of a hurry? Nobody here eats dinner before 9. Adam's head reeled, but through his dizziness, a high English voice cut in. "I was stuck in the lift at Harrod's once, but not for nearly as long as this." It was stiflingly hot in the elevator, with all the jammed-in bodies, and the laughter was beginning to have a hysterical edge. That was ready to slip over into panic, and he, in his own panic, was being no help. He could feel his heart pounding. Collie's arm was tight about his waist. The fat lady gave a thin, bubbly scream, but before her hysteria got over the edge of control, the elevator gave a groan and a jerk, and the operator, as though he were piloting a plane, brought it to a stop at the upper platform. Adam, forgetting all courtesy, pushed out, dragging Callie after him. He looked at his watch, almost 6. He swung at Callie, shouting, "You do the shopping. Here's the list. Here's some money." He thrust Dr. Ball's bills into her hand. "There. I'll meet you at the folklore as soon as I can. Without stopping for any kind of response from her, without giving her a chance to hold him back, he rushed off up the street. An empty cab was passing. He hailed it and got in, panting. Sao Juan Chrysostom Monastery, por favor. He saw that Kali had run up the street after him, but he slammed the taxi door, giving her a vague nod and wave. If she had heard where he was going, it was too late now. He looked from the window of the taxi at his watch and back to the windows. The streets were full of people going home, streaming out of stores, hotels, subway stops, their shadows long as the sun began to drop. The driver wove skillfully around pedestrians, buses, cars. Adam looked at him through the dividing glass, a rough-appearing man in a fisherman's sweater and cap, with an unkempt beard. He looked at Adam in the rearview mirror and winked. Adam froze. One of Cutter's men? Had he walked into a trap? Still with his foot on the accelerator, the driver turned to face Adam, gave a jerk to the beard, which came off, revealing Arcangelo. A swift movement of the beard, it was back in place. Arcangelo! Adam gasped. What? I've been following you all day, Arcangelo said in his careful English. So have others. But it's not safe for you. You did not recognize me, did you? But it's still not safe. Dr. O'Keefe said, You think I would let those snakes drive me undercover? Arcangelo swerved scornfully around a bus and turned down a side street. If anything happened to you, Polyhymnia would be unhappy. Ahead of them, a large black car swung out of a side street, so that Arcangelo had to jam on the brakes. Duck! He said suddenly, and in a quick reflex, Adam dropped to the floor. Molech! Arcangelo growled between closed teeth. We are in for what you would call a showdown. Where is the Cutter girl? He spoke with as little lip motion as possible, then puckered his lips in a whistle, so that anyone looking back from the dark car ahead would not know he was talking to the passenger. The whistling resolved itself into a melody, the Talus Cannon. Adam felt a surge of excitement despite his cold hands and feet. She's safe. She's shopping. I have to get to the Sao Juan Chrysostom Monastery before 6. Canon Talus is waiting for me. 6 now, Arcangelo said. They are trying to slow us down, and I cannot let them know I know who they are, or they will know who I am. It closes at 6. I know a side door. But we will have to get rid of Molech. Arcangelo swung around and down a side street, then turned back into the city. Adam raised his head, but Arcangelo said sharply, Stay down! The boy could not see where they were going, but he could feel that it was a rapid and devious way. The taxi stopped with an abruptness and threw him against the seat in front, and Arcangelo said, Get out! Cold though Adam's hands might be, his reflexes were functioning satisfactorily. He grasped the handle of the door and pitched himself into the street. They had stopped at a rank of taxis. Arcangelo was leaning out of the window, talking to one of the drivers, and indicated with a gesture of his thumb that Adam was to get into the other cab. As the boy slammed the door, Arcangelo said, He will take you to the Sao Juan Chrysostom. I will continue to drive so that Molech will be put off the trail. Now go, quickly. The taxi shot off. Adam called back, Arcangelo, take care of yourself. The taxi driver, a thin Negro, looked at Adam in the rearview mirror and smiled. Then he began to whistle softly, the Talus Cannon. Adam joined him. They smiled at each other. Adam knew that he must not make the mistake of thinking that either he or the passengers were safe because Arcangelo was taking charge, because he liked the young man who was driving him, but the terror had left the pit of his stomach, and he sat, coiled like a wire, ready at any moment and whenever necessary to spring. Sao Juan, the driver said, and ahead of them was the beautiful, austere building. They drove past the entrance, the great doors closed, only darkness showing behind the stained glass windows, which were drained of color as light was slowly draining from the sky. They turned the corner and went past the chapter house. Beyond this was an iron gate that opened in a long, narrow, hedged-in path to the cloister. The driver looked around quickly, stopped, and jumped out. Adam followed him, and together they ran to the gate. The driver pulled at the bell once, twice, 3 times. In the distance, they could hear it clanging, bong, bong, bong. Through the sound of the bell came the sputter of an engine. The driver grabbed Adam, and together they pressed into the shadows. A diesel-powered taxi drove up, and someone sprang out. And that is the end of Chapter 21.